Okay, we are,
We're
now we're
live.
live.
Okay, all the information I'm going to share with you I received from Jim Lucas, whose father, Barney Lucas, developed surf pines. Barney moved to Oregon in approximately 1935. He bought the Garrett Golf Course and the Garrett Hotel. During that time period, in the early 40s, he started doing some other developing outside of owning the golf course. He wound up developing the Palisades in Gearhart, and he started acquiring property which is now called Surf Pines. And it was just a bunch of dunes, sand dunes, and he called it the Lucas Bent Farm Nursery. And over the course of a few years, probably from 1942 to 1948, he was buying properties from various families. The Johnson family, which the Earls were related, so was Paul C. And he accumulated approximately 3 miles of ocean frontage. His first ad appeared in 1948. This is an ad that he ran in the local paper, and it talked about 2 oceanfront developments, one in Neocony Mountain and one at Gearhart Surf Pines. Then in 1949, he started marketing the properties, and he sold his first 2 tracts to the Miller family and the Malarkey family.
That's how the Malarkeys got involved.
Yeah.
They were the second.
And I've got a copy of the contracts. So those properties are south of the Schroeder house, and they were the first property sold. Each property was approximately 36 acres and had, I want to say, 15 to 1,800. I can't remember. I'd have to go look back at the maps, but it had 1,200 to 1,500. Each parcel had 1,200 to 1,500 lineal feet of ocean frontage. In addition to the purchase price, which, do you want me to give you the purchase price, or, I mean, I don't know if I should do that.
Yeah.
It's all public record. They paid $12,000 for those properties.
Each?
Yes,
And how many acres did they?
approximately 36 and 32 acres. One parcel was 36 acres, and the other parcel was 32 acres.
How much was the second one? 42?
Just a second.
Well, actually, I can, if you don't mind my scanning that, I'll put it on my scanner at home.
Okay,
and
but I
then-
want to make sure that I was right on the. No, I think that I take it back. I think the price that they paid was $10,000. I have that contract somewhere, and I'll show it to you. But in addition to paying $10,000 for the 2 properties, they agreed to build the road from Highway 101 into Surf Pines. There was no road. There was nothing. And they paid Barney $12,000 to build the road, which also gave them property on Sunset Lake. Barney created 2 additional tracts for them on Sunset Lake for the $12,000, and he gave them a permanent recorded easement to utilize all roads in Surf Pines. And this is very important because this goes back to the Pinehurst issue, where, you know, we made the point that we had a recorded easement to use all the roads in Surf Pines, and some of the opponents. Maybe you can edit this out. Can you edit?
Oh, I'm going to edit all of this out. I mean,
Okay.
basically, what happens is I'll record this, and then I've got this program called Final Cut, and I'll just take excerpts out. But
Okay, but you'll see that this is a copy of the contract that gives them the right to utilize all roads, and it also talks about them building a road which goes that way 1,500 feet below my house. This was the main road that we had into the Malarkey and Miller property.
oh, through here, not through.
No, it was right below my house. I'll show you the copy of that. And as a young kid, that's where I used to go with my friends and drink beer and park with girlfriends. This was taken in 1949, before our house was built. This is the road from Surf Pines that comes in here. Here's the location of our house. Here's the road going down the hill, and here's the road going south, which Kiever and everybody said was never a road. Okay, and then this is the road that floods.
Yeah, this is what's now ocean.
Correct, that's Ocean Drive. Pretty interesting. Here's a little better look. I mean, you could clearly see that the road came came all the way down.
Now let's keep them in sequence. Then after
Yeah.
I'm done recording here, then I can just take pictures, and then I don't have to take them with me.
Okay.
Some of these, like these, would be easier to scan with my scanner, but these pictures,
Yeah.
I can take with my camera. So that would be picture number 1, which is Surf Pines Road through Pinehurst. And same, and then same.
This is this is an interesting plat. This was done in 1950. And, okay. Here's where we are. This is our house. Here's the Surf Pines Road. This goes down to Ocean Avenue. And there's the road going into Malarkey and Miller's property, okay? All platted, everything's there.
Oh, so Pinehurst was sold to Malarkey and Miller?
No, they were never partners in Pinehurst. That was,
But I mean, the land that is now Pinehurst, they originally owned?
yeah, it was originally part of Surf Pines. And I'll show you, when Barney Lucas started to, and Mike Mannion probably doesn't have a copy of this, but Barney tried to sell Surf Pines to my dad and Rolf Clapp and a couple of other people.
Yeah, I just heard about Rolf yesterday.
Yeah.
That's the first I'd heard of him.
Well, he was one of our best friends. He lived
Yeah.
right in
2
Barney's
doors
home.
down from you.
Yeah, he bought Barney's house. Anyway, Barney tried to sell the property to my dad and Rolf Clapp and a couple other people, and they didn't have any interest in doing it. But in the contract, Barney states specifically that the southern boundary is the Delray Beach Plat, the old Delray Beach Plat, which is about 200 feet north of the Delray Beach Road. And that's always been interesting, but no one ever really wanted to believe it, but it was the truth. I got that. I'll show you that somewhere in just a minute. Shit, where did I put it? Oh, here it is. Okay, the general boundaries of the area are Sunset on the south, Delray Beach, a recorded subdivision. On the east, all land west of Neocoxie Creek and Sunset Lake, and on the north, attracted by Hanson and blah, 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 blah. But that just shows you again, you know, what the boundaries were.
I'm gonna, these type things, can I take those
Yeah,
with
yeah,
me?
you can have all
These,
this
the
stuff.
pictures, the big pictures I'll take here.
Okay. But again, these are the first plats. And the other thing that I was going to tell you is that you'll see, Barney, this is Meets and Bounds. This is Surf Pines Beach Edition, which is right below my house. These are little tiny lots that are, I want to say they're 75 feet wide and like 300 or 400 feet deep. That's their boundary, okay? They didn't own, the other property owners, same thing in Pinehurst, their property line goes to the high water line. These properties are...
And those are the 8 lots they ended up having to buy that land that where the buildup
Yeah.
had been
Yeah.
over the 20 years or 30
Right.
years.
Right. So, you know, it's all recorded and platted. Now, there are a couple of other, I've got one of the originals that is really pretty interesting. This is one of the earlier ones. Barney was going to build a golf course at one time too.
Yeah, in fact, where Pinehurst is now, wasn't he going to build one on
No.
what's Pinehurst now?
No, I tried to do that. Barney wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Barney wasn't involved.
That's
but,
something Mike had mentioned.
Yeah, but here, I'm not sure what the date is on this, but it talks about, these are the tracks that Miller and Malarkey had. Some of these little tiny lots. Mannion had it at this time. It's not that,
Now, what's the year on this one?
I'm not sure. This is 1957. and
57. Okay, not
Yeah.
51. Okay.
This looks similar to the one that you have from Mike Mannion.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
And he talks about golf course additions. See, Barney wanted to build a golf course in the northern portion of Surf Pines.
Now, where are you in relation to this?
We're right way in here.
Oh, so this is what's now Pinehurst then?
No, this is all Surf Pines. Surf Pines has 11 1,000 lineal feet of ocean frontage, which is about 3 miles.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so this is west and north is that way. Okay,
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
disoriented.
Yeah, but you can see he's got golf course addition. I mean, that was his idea at that time. This is before he decided to sell.
So that would have been over by where my house is where my old house was on Ocean, because mine was right below.
The big tall?
Yeah, you know where not Norma.
McGowan.
No. The lady whose husband was the musician, Marge Bloomfield.
Okay.
My house was catty corner from Marge Bloomfield's, right down here. So
Okay.
whichever one's Marge's, ours was right in here. So I think our lot was right in about here, because
Yeah,
this
here's
is
the-
horizon here.
This is Lanasar's in here. There's the community. It's a little park area that used to be, no one ever uses anymore, but that's where Lanasar's house is. And Marge Bloomfield was up in this area somewhere.
Right.
So, yeah, that would have been correct.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I got it clear in my mind.
Oh, there's another one I wanted to show you.
So when did he decide to change these from small lots to the current lots that they have? Is that in the 60s?
You know, I think, and I'm not positive on this, I think that Bill Mannion did that, but I'm not sure. You mean all these, see, these are all
Well,
little
these
tiny
here,
lots.
yeah, these
Well, no, this
here-
was 1949. Barney did this. This
But
is all
when did
platted.
but when did they make them into larger lots? Because
They
now,
never did. They've never increased the size of those. Some of those people own 2 lots, but they've never increased the size. And here's the other interesting thing.
oh,
about
so basically, like Keevers actually may own 2 or 3 lots then.
it. At one time, they had at least 2. They sold one to a guy that built a house down there. I can't remember his name. He built a house about 3 years ago. But this area called Surf Pines Beach Addition was really interesting. Barney did that right after he built this house, and then he built a house down here, which is the house that Orr used to live in. That was where Barney, that was the second house in Surf Pines, and that house was under construction in 1950, and Barney had a Christmas party here in December 1950.
Oh, that's when your dad talked
My
to me about
dad,
buying this place.
Yeah, bought this house.
Yeah, I remember you telling me
But
that
Barney
story.
wanted Dad to buy this house. Dad didn't want that house. He wanted this house. But here's the interesting thing. Barney's banker was a guy named Ralph Williams, who was president of the Oregon Bank. And Ralph Williams built a house right down here. And at the same time, Barney had building lines on all these properties. He had a straight line that went from here to the north on all the property. Everyone's was the same. I can't remember the exact dimension, but I want to say it was like 500 or 600 feet from their property line on the east, okay? Ralph Williams came in on the same day that Ralph Williams closed on his house. Barney moved the building line on all these properties. He made it not a straight line, but a jagged line. One property could build to 134 feet, one property could build to 142 feet, one could build to 125 feet, back and forth. And it had to do, I think, with the dune configuration, but also Ralph Williams didn't want to look to the south and see any houses. That's my opinion, because it happened on the exact same day. It was recorded on the same day, and I got all that information.
So that's when Barney filed the staggered property line.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's interesting.
Same time. And that's always been an issue, especially with Kiever and Groshon. And one lady that did pick up on that, and she was a pretty sharp lady, she gave me fits for a while, but Marge Bloomfield, she finally figured that out. And what we did with Pinehurst, when the issue became on the Pinehurst building lot, we told the county that we developed a building line that was consistent with, that lined up with Surf Pines and lined up with the Highlands, which is what we did. We had our surveyors, and the only building line that's recorded in the county for Surf Pines is this plat that Barney did in 1949 with that building line. So we connected to that building line. It just so happens that that building line was about 40 or 50 feet in front of Groshon's building line, because Groshon got set back in 1949.
Oh, no.
Or whenever Ralph Williams built that house. We did nothing wrong. We connected to the line that was a platted, recorded building line, not a deed restriction, because Barney put deed restrictions on all these properties. That's how they know.
Yeah.
That's how they knew. So, that was all pretty interesting. And I thought, this is another article that was done in 1959, and it talked about, that's about the time that Barney really started to think about selling the property. But there's a nice article. This is a picture of Barney and a man named, what's his name? Steve McNeil. He used to be a writer for the Saturday Evening Post, and he had a house in Gurrick, but he was a friend of Barney's. This is Bill Mannion's, or no, this was Ralph Williams's house. The man that I was just...
That's the 15th, or the one that had the farthest western lot.
Right, on those Surf Pines edition. But you can see the ocean was really close in those days. I mean, when you look out today, the ocean is probably 400 or 500 yards.
Yeah.
More
Yeah,
to
there's
the west.
another picture that Kathy Arndt's uncle bought a house. It used to be, I think it was one of the, it was the model, I think.
Well, this is probably the house. I have the original. This is Barney Lucas. That's Helen. That's his daughter, Patty, and that's Jim. Look how close that house is. That's down the lower road.
Okay, that's picture number 4. Okay, so that's Barney sitting. And then
Helen,
Patty who?
Patty Lucas.
Lucas. That was his daughter.
Yeah,
And Helen was his wife.
yeah. And then Jim. In the other picture, the girl, that's
And
some
then
friend
Jim.
of Patty's.
And then Jim, Lucas, and who's the other guy standing out there?
That's a girl, a friend of Patty's. You mean here?
No,
No, that's Jim.
oh, that's Jim, and that's
That's
Patty's
another
friend.
Patty's friend.
Now, the picture that Kathy had is a picture from Ocean, looking at the building, and you can see through the windows, and you can see the beach.
Oh,
You can see the beach through the house.
well, that's kind of what that is.
But this one really illustrates it quite well, so I'll take that
Yeah,
picture
yeah.
when we get done with this video.
This is what I want to show you. This is one of the original ones. Might be it.
Okay, and this would have been date-wise.
So this would have been really pretty early on.
Do you have any Post-it notes handy?
Any what?
Post-it notes, so if I want to make a note,
You know,
I can mark on this.
I'm not sure if
I should have. Hold on, I got some. I just remember I brought some with me.
I thought about that when I was in Portland a couple of days ago.
Here we go. I got 2
You have
sets.
some?
Yeah.
Okay.
I try to come prepared. So this would have been done in
This was early 50s.
early 50s. I want to mark Bill Williamson real quick. No, that's not it. It is this one. Yeah, that one. So he would have gotten one. Well, 1B is. Did he have 1B? Because it has 1,500 for 1B.
Ralph Williams had lot number 24. That's where his house is, lot number 24.
Ralph Williams. And he was the banker.
Yep,
Barney.
President of Oregon Bank. He was Barney's banker.
Banker. Oregon Bank. And let's see, and then staggered property lines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm glad I thought of that now.
Here, this is interesting too. This is in Barney's handwriting. This is again real early, okay, but remember I told you that they bought these 2 properties for
Correct.
$10,000 and then paid $12,000 for the road. Here's the road contract that they agreed to pay. But
And that was for Surf Pines Lane.
Yeah. This plat map was probably done right after Barney sold this property to, this was probably the earliest plat map that he did.
And that shows the road right there.
It shows the road below my house, and it also mentions that Barney, in addition to paying for the road, Barney gave them these lots on Sunset Lake, which is now Surf Pines Landing. That was the Miller parcel.
Oh, okay, Surf Pines Landing.
Surf Pines Landing was part of the Miller parcel on the lake. I did that development for them years ago. And then the Malarkey parcel, Malarkey still have a house. Mike Malarkey's wife still has a house on the Malarkey parcel. And they've all developed their properties. Or when I said they've all developed, both the Miller family and the Malarkey family. This is where it's interesting, okay? Okay.
January
This is
23rd,
1948. Okay, this is, remember I told you that he started marketing the properties in 48.
Uh-huh.
Here's the building line, okay? So this is the road, okay, here's the ocean. So we're looking, here's the ocean, here's the lower road.
That would be the old ocean, or the Ocean Avenue now.
Yeah, and here's this building line that you can see that goes right here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And each one of those is, well, they've got it on degrees from a surveying standpoint. But after Barney sold this property to Ralph Williams, these building lines started changing, okay?
Now, which one would have been Ralph's?
Well, he was up here.
Up higher, okay. So these are the houses right below
yeah,
here.
okay, this is Groshon's house, this is Keever's house, etc. So Groshon's building line now is back in here somewhere.
I'm glad I got 2 packets of Post-its.
I don't think you care about this. Is just a bill for the road that Barney sent to her Malarkey for $6,182 in April '49. I mean, it just shows you the bills that they were paying.
Actually, if you don't mind, I'll take a picture of
you
it.
can.
Mainly because we're doing the budget committee for Saturdays, so I can show them what it used to cost.
Yeah, that's fine. Let me see, is this the same thing? Did I give you? Let me see if I.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't even blacktop, it was just crushed rock.
Yeah, he didn't pave it until, I'm not sure, a couple years later. Here's another version of, this is that plat that we just looked at. This gives you a better idea. This is, yeah, what I've mentioned here is this goes all the way to 24 to Ralph Williams' lot. His building line is 145 feet from the road, and one down below, or right next to him, is 139 feet, and they just keep, they move. I'll try to find, I know I have that somewhere. I'm not sure where I have it, but.
Now, what was the thinking that Barney had for not running the property all the way to the high tide line? I mean, was that...
At that point, the ocean was really pretty close.
Right.
I mean, well, the only reason Surf Pines Beach Addition did not go to the high water line is it's because it's a platted recorded subdivision with meets and bounds. So just like if you're in the city of Portland or city of Gerhardt, you buy a piece of property with a house on it, and you know exactly the dimensions of your property. It's outlined. It's called meets and bounds.
Okay.
Barney didn't do the only place that in Surf Pines that's done are on the platted, or plats that are recorded, which one of them is Surf Pines Beach Edition. Then he did another one in the middle part of Surf Pines, and then I did Surf Pines Landing, and there may be one others, but the rest of them are just meets. They're not meets and bounds. They're not recorded that way. And the property, especially on the ocean front, goes to the high water line, and that's moved.
And that, so everything past the original development was the high water line, but
Well,
just that first development. Is
Why
the-
Barney did that, I don't know why he did that. And these lots are all smaller than the rest of the lots. And if you look at the plat. for
Yeah, that's what
example,
I was noticing.
This one, you can have, this one is 1978. This is from the county. But here's Surf Pines, here's our house. And look at the size of these lots, especially up above, and some of these lots down below. I mean, they're good sized lots. But here, they're little tiny lots, narrow and short.
Right.
So this was the property that was left in the Lucas's name. And that's, when they were trying to settle the estate with Jim's mom, they found out that they still controlled all this land. So what we were gonna do, from an acreage standpoint, you can never build out here. I mean, Kiever and everybody went nuts thinking somebody was gonna build a house in front of them. That was never gonna happen. There's no way it could happen legally,
Yeah.
because there's no density. But what Jim was gonna do is he was gonna take that acreage, and then, because it was contiguous to Pinehurst, then we'd increase our acreage, our overall acreage in Pinehurst, and we might get an extra building lot out of it. That was the issue.
Ah, okay. Now
If that
that
makes sense.
makes a hell of a lot more sense.
That's
Okay.
what was gonna happen. So they got in a pissing match, legal, I mean, it was terrible. Kiever, Norma Kiever is. So they went after Jim, and I don't know how much it cost him in legal fees, and I think they just wound up making some kind of settlement where Kiever and that group paid Jim's legal fees, and they transferred the title to those 6 or 7 property owners.
Okay, now this has been a while, but somehow
It
in the
was
back of my head,
Kiever
Norma
and-
said that they
and
had gone
Ward.
ahead.
I don't think,
Somebody that might know is the people that live right next to Kiever is Teresa and Dan. I don't know what their last name is, but Teresa's one of the head nurses over at the VA, over at Camp where I live. And so when I go in for,
are they the ones that just bought the house,
Yeah.
or built the house down
Right.
there? Yeah, I see her husband, he's a nice guy, and I gave him a couple pine trees, because I got so damn many pine trees around here. But I think that's how it happened, but Jim's intent was never, I mean, there's no way you can
yeah, because
build a
I
house.
wondered about that, when
Yeah.
she mentioned, but I
All-
think, anyway, what I remember her
Because when
saying
you
is they
look-
did pay something, but
When
it
you
wasn't
look,
high.
yeah, when you look at the plat map, I mean, this is just an area that was nobody's land, because.
Well, it was ocean at the time that it was platted.
Yeah, I mean, this is Groshon's property, and it stopped right here, and this property was still in the Lucas family's name. So Jim was just gonna donate blend the acreage into Pinehurst, and we hope to get an extra building site out of it. But this gives you a pretty good idea. Here's Sunset Lake that just flows through.
And
This is-
SEPA's owned these lots over right in here.
Yeah, that was never part of Surf Pines. I mean, Barney's, the other thing that I should get into, and this happened in I wanna say 61. I don't know if Mike mentioned it to you, but John Osborne owned the Gary Hotel at that time, and he had a good friend named Bill Payne, and they wanted to, at the time, Bud's Drive-In, which is now the Great Wall. Bud's Drive-In was a pretty successful little restaurant, and they had a motel, and they had a go-kart racetrack behind the restaurant. And John Osborne and Bill Payne wanted to put a go-kart track in Surf Pines. And Ray Earl, Russell Earl's dad, owned all this property, and there was 75 acres in this area, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And 4 property owners, my dad kind of took the lead on this, 4 property owners, they split the property up into 5 parcels, and each parcel was 15 acres, and they bought it for $75,000. Each family paid $10,000. So, no, that's only $50,000. Maybe they only paid $15,000. I can't remember. But they were about 3 days from closing or Ray Earl was about 3 days away from closing the property with John Osborne and Bill Payne, and my dad and Rolf Clapp and Bill Hazeltine and 2 other people got involved, and they bought that 75 acres. And those parcels were in our names for years and years and years. I wound up acquiring that 15 acres that my dad bought in the early 70s or a lot of part
So
of
that
the
would have
60s.
been right across from Manny, because your house is right here, right?
Yeah, it's right over here. It's where there's a few houses in there right now, but it's kind of an interesting story. But my grandmother was about to pass away, and my dad wanted to know. My grandmother was going to give me some money, and my dad wanted to know it was $10,000 if what I wanted to do, if I wanted to buy some stocks or what I wanted. I said, I'll exchange that money for that 14.9 acres. So Dad said, that's fine. Dad took the 10,000 and I got the 14.9 acres.
No kidding.
Then when in the early 80s, when we were fooling around with the Pinehurst property, trying to do something with the Pinehurst property, there was an old platted development that straddled the Delray Beach Road called the Delray Beach Plat. And on the north side, it was owned by the county. And I worked out a deal with the county where I traded my property in Surf Pines to the county for their 14 or 15 acres. And then there was a little bit of, I can't remember what the difference was, but there was a little bit of difference that I had to pay or they had to pay me. And then, fast forward to the mid-90s when we were doing Pinehurst, we wound up doing, we wound up taking the density off that property, or Pinehurst wound up buying the property from the county and folding it into the Pinehurst development, and we took the
Okay,
density,
that's why it went from the county to Pinehurst. Okay.
Yeah, we took the density off that property and the old Rolf Klepp property. Which
Now, when you
at
say
that time,
density, I want to make sure I'm clear of what that means.
there was 14 building sites on that property because it was the property was a little less than 15 acres, and the density was.
And you were limited to
It
1
was
acre.
1 acre per dwelling
Okay,
site.
got it. Okay.
So there were approximately 30 building sites on those 2 parcels, and we moved 24 of them, I believe, 24 or 25, to the Pinehurst property because the county had the zoning on the Pinehurst property with all the overlay zones, et cetera, even though we had a little less than a mile of ocean frontage and 140 or 50 acres, we could only put 24 houses on Pinehurst. So we didn't have enough density to warrant a subdivision. It wouldn't pencil out, so we had to have more density. So given the fact that they were all private properties, you could do a cluster subdivision, and that's what we did. So we incorporated those properties into the Pinehurst development, keeping 47 lots on Pinehurst, and then we kept 4 lots on the.
And
those 2
so
properties.
these are 15 acres, or almost 15 acres each.
Yeah, each one of those, right.
Okay, so this had a density of 14.
They both had 14 point whatever, and when you combine them, we wound up with 29 building sites on those 2 properties. And we wound up buying density from Hayes Weed, and we bought the density from the county. We had to put the county property up for a public auction, so anybody could have bought it, but we were there and we bid on it. We were the only people that bid on it, and we paid the county cash, and that's how we were able to transfer the density and make the Pinehurst development happen.
So once you transferred the density, then how many, what was the density left on the 2 that were left in Pinehurst?
We had 4 lots on those 2 properties. Then, after and this gets pretty interesting, the butterfly people, the Oregon Department of Fish and
spotted
Wildlife,
butterfly,
thought that portion of the property had some butterfly habitat on it, and so, we were just going to leave it vacant. Then in December of 07, we had a huge storm, and it blew down most of the trees.
Oh yeah, that's when all the trees got knocked down.
It was really bad. So Surf Pines came to me and said, and by that time, those properties, we turned the Pinehurst development over to the association, the Pinehurst Homeowners Association, in 06. We put those properties in my name, the balance of the properties that weren't developed into my name. And Surf Pines Association came to me and said, you've got to clean that up. It's a real fire hazard. So it cost about $12,000 to clean up all the debris.
And what is that now today? I mean, these 2 lots?
It's right over here. I mean,
Those are the houses on the other side of Mannion. So Mannion would be right here.
This is Mannion right here.
Got it.
This
So
is-
these are this is Now, what,
Here's-
this area here is the
the-
part that they
That's
developed?
Waterhouse.
That was Waterhouse,
Yeah.
okay.
So anyway, there's 4 houses there. Surf Pines had been using a portion of that property for a dumping ground for quite some time. I owned the property. That's where they put their debris. There's now a chain. It's right across from the
Okay, I know,
gatehouse.
okay, I know specifically where you're talking about, okay.
So-
Yeah, because there's like a homeless camp somewhere just right over here from there.
I hope not, but
Yeah, Ken was telling me,
a homeless guy?
yes, they hit it really well, and John Gates found it originally. I think they finally got rid of them, but
Jeez,
yeah,
I
they
didn't-
actually had a homeless camp right there.
I didn't know that. But anyway, Surf Pines has always wanted that property, as did North Coast Land Conservancy, because they felt there were violet flowers there, and if there are violet flowers, there'll
Then you
be
got the
butterflies.
butterflies.
So I said, okay, I have some density that I bought from the Oregon Parks Department when I tried to do a project up at the Sunset Beach. I moved some of it to the Reed Ranch, which I owned at the time, and I said, if you agree or release the balance of this property to the west of Stellar Lane, I'll wind up giving you the other 13 acres. So that's how that happened, and they wound up allowing 7 lots on that property, and I got approval to build 7 home sites on the property. In exchange for that, I donated a portion of the property to North Coast Land Conservancy and the Surf Pines Homeowners Association. That's how you got
Yeah,
that.
because now we have that, and we can build a storage.
Correct.
From what I understand, we can build a storage
And that was
thing
real
there.
important. And the only thing that I would have done differently on that, well, first of all, I wound up, it doesn't make a difference. I wound up selling that little subdivision to the Nygaard family, and they built some.
Yeah,
houses
because the
there.
Nygaards are the ones that built the houses there,
Yeah.
and we just took over the road maintenance on it
Yeah, I'm
about a
not-
month ago.
Between you and me and edit this, I'm not happy with those houses. I think that, I wouldn't have done it that way. I would have had, quote, quote, little, like miniature CC&Rs like we did on those 4 lots where you had, cedar siding and just make them look beachy. They look like track houses.
Yeah.
It's not for Surf Pines in my opinion. But the other thing that I should have done and I didn't do, and it's another thing that we can talk about later, but when you look at those trees, they block my view. See?
Right.
Okay, those trees are in the Surf Pines right away. Maybe a couple of them are on Keever's and Groshon's property.
Mhm.
But in another couple of years, if they're not trimmed, I'm not gonna have a view.
Yeah.
And that really bothers me, Tom. I mean, my dad, he bought this property to look at the ocean, to be able to look at the dunes in the ocean. And I spent, between you and me, in the last year, I've spent about $12,000 just trimming the trees that I have, that are on my property.
Something that just occurred that may make some changes. Number one thing is, you heard that Gene Keever had passed away.
No,
Yeah, Gene passed away about a month ago.
I didn't know that.
And Norma is not doing well. Norma's always had memory issues. It's
Yeah.
gotten even progressively worse. They had a second place over in Portland. That's with her son Hal.
Yeah, Hal's a good guy. He
Yeah,
works with.
and anyway, she escaped his house, came over, and so Tracy, her other daughter, and Steve are doing some cleanup on our old house. They got some dry rot, and so she's actually down there. But what you might be interested in knowing is that they're probably going to be selling her house pretty quickly, and same thing with Steve and Tracy. I think they're going to probably sell theirs shortly after that because they bought the house from us, so it'd be close to Norma. So
I mean,
that may
I'm-
make some changes
Yeah,
depending on
I'm
who
happy.
moves there.
I'm happy to pay a lot of the cost. I mean, I just want to try to protect my view. My wife and my kids, they would, whatever they would do, but.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
Let's go.
I just thought you'd like.
So that's how
to-
those 7 lots got platted.
Okay.
That all happened, and then I was the one that wound up giving the property to the Surf Pines Association. In fact, not only did they get that, they got some other property along the way. But you can. Okay. This is what Surf Pines used to look like.
Okay. So this was Surf Pines.
This was taken in probably 1956.
I'll take a picture of that one. I think. 1956.
You know.
1956, and that is taken from
My driveway, right where you came in.
driveway. Gee.
I'm gonna look for one thing.
And
just a
that's
minute.
picture number 55. Surf Pines, 1956. From. So all those Surf Pines. Oh, you know what else? Oh. Excellent. Oh. 1957.